Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Herdfit podcast with Dr. Sam Ree and myself, Coach David Syvertson. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. All right. Welcome back to the Herdfit podcast. I am Coach David Syvertson. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Ree, and the man in the middle is Coach and Professor Adam Ramson. And we brought Adam on for a somewhat controversial CrossFit topic. Don't get excited. This is not a Danielle Brandon or Danny Spiegel episode. Okay. Or who's dating who at the gym. That'll be safe for our group text, of course. No, just kidding. We're going to talk about something that when I remember my early days of CrossFit, one of the most popular statements was, in a very corny way, but there is some truth to it, that there are no machines here. The people are the machines. And my early days of CrossFit Hoboken, which back then, 2010, 2011, they were one of the hallmark gyms of CrossFit. They had like 11 rowers with classes of 30 people. Like, me hearing that right now gives me anxiety of like, how do you program this? How do you program that? But the truth is, we just didn't use them that much. It was almost like a once every 2-3 weeks, you would see them implemented into a workout. And sometimes it was just like a 2K row for time. And we'll do it in waves, we'll do it in heats, and, see it in 3 weeks on that rower. And now I would say the typical CrossFit gyms that you walk into, there are echo bikes or assault bikes. There are rowers, there are ski ergs, and some even have the C2 bike in addition to the other two bikes. And they take up a lot of space. They're the most expensive pieces of equipment in the gym. And they get used every single week, one way or another. And there is a growing amount of voices, number of voices talking down on this, that we've become too reliant on machines. And to me, I'm biased towards them because I like them, but I can also see the perspective. And I think a big part of critical thinking, which is a struggle for a lot of people, is criticizing your own thoughts and your own beliefs and going into it saying, hey, I like machines. I like rowers. I like bikes. I would put them into every day's workout if I could for myself. But that doesn't necessarily it's right, or it doesn't mean it's right for other people. So I want to question my thoughts on it. And I listen to a lot of people that talk down on them. My first thought goes to, well, they're usually, not good on the machine, and that's why they don't like it, but we all kind of do that some ways. We're all biased against lifting or Olympic lifting or gymnastics or long workouts or running. But Sam and Adam, before we get into this specific topic, because both you guys are very well read, you're very well educated, two of the smarter people that I ever have talked to on a continued basis. Is this part of your process for yourself when you think about things that doesn't even have to be CrossFit related? The term critical thinking to you, like what does that mean? Questioning ideas and theories. What is that to you, Adam?
Yeah, I think, we live in a world right now where everything is black and white, or everybody needs to make it black and white in order for them to get clicks and, get views on their videos and, confirm the biases of one half of the people. And I think when it comes down to most situations, there's a gray area, and you have to see, what are we really looking at as far as, is the use of machines in the gym a crutch, right? Did it go from an area where, it was just the gym was full of fire breathers and everything was go as hard as you can until you are puking on the floor, to now, the machines can be used in a way that's increases that intensity, but doesn't make it as high impact. So we have to look at all of those things and kind of find the middle ground if possible.
Sam, I mean, you are scientific background,
yeah,
and also someone that's just very well educated, and you're very thoughtful. You like to analyze and break things down, and even to this, like me and you, like we like to debate some things. Where do you stand with that? Like, hey, if I have an opinion about something, I want to be able to question it to make sure I truly believe in something. It could be cross related or anything else.
Well, you know me, I'm a very emotional guy, and I don't hold back And people always make fun of me at the gym because if I think something, I'm going to say it, no holds barred. And I'm so glad you chose this topic. It's so funny. We didn't talk about this before, but I saw this video that you shot out us at us about from Hiller about too many machines in CrossFit. I saw that a couple of weeks ago. And then when you shot it back out to us for this topic, I rewatched it. And I had a very visceral, emotional reaction to this guy, Mason Startup or whatever his name is. Very good video, very short, 10 minutes or something. I would recommend people see it. And his premise that there are too many machines, that I would say the premise that there are a lot more machine use in CrossFit now than there has been in the past is true. But his assertion that that is not a good thing is something that I had a very emotional reaction to. And as analytical as I am, and I did pull some thoughts about it, my first thoughts were just like you said, oh, he must suck at machines. Or two, he's just a kid who doesn't understand like what older athletes have to go through in terms of exercise and fitness. And, you know, this is just a wannabe competitor who just hates having to grind it out. Then I actually went back and, like you said, you know, sort of analyzed some of these points. And I think it's a very important discussion to have because this actually does sort of influence how programming is, what we think fitness is, and how we think athletes, both competitive and just everyday athletes, should be thinking about machines.
The way you wrap that up, that's exactly this. This is a sport discussion as much as it is a fitness question, but the answers to both are not the same. And you guys know how I feel about blending sport and fitness together. I do think it's the same thing, but there are different demands and different things some people have to do based on their goals versus sport versus health and fitness. And I do have two different answers for this. One would be a sport related answer and one would be more of a health and gym related answer. And we'll get into both. But Sam, I had a similar response to you that I was like, started to get a little angry listening to it, although I understand what he was saying. But it does sound like a kid who knows about the history of CrossFit, but he's probably not that involved with coaching old people. Now, I shouldn't older people or has not been doing it or has not been running a gym, has not been programming for affiliates. The vast majority of people that do CrossFit, you can tell whenever I hear Hiller sometimes talk about some stuff, I can tell that there's just some things they're not connected to because of where they are in the space. It doesn't mean they don't have any credibility in these conversations, but I think we have a very unique and strong perspective and opinion on this because of where we are in the CrossFit space. And the three people in this chat alone, we have very different goals and our whys behind CrossFit and what we think about when we're at the gym, but we're all doing it together. And I think that, you know, we can have a really good sound conversation about this and talk about it from a few different perspectives and maybe even question each other and question ourselves on it. But I do agree with what he said early on in the video. And if anyone wants to go watch it, it's called This Is Getting Out of Hand. It was about a month ago. I'll link it in the YouTube and Spotify. But if you want to go, if you're watching right now, you don't want to wait for that. This is Getting Out of Hand from Herdfit. And it's a 10-minute video. Very well done, by the way. It was a very, very good video. And one thing he said at the beginning was one thing that set CrossFit apart. I can remember early days walking to a CrossFit gym, it felt different. It looked different. And that was part of the draw to it. You didn't walk in and see 49 treadmills, 36, ellipticals, and 18 Stairmasters. Like it just wouldn't work space-wise. It wouldn't work economically. And you felt it was kind of cool that the majority of the work you were doing, you were moving your body weight or an exterior load. And a responsible CrossFit program, that is still, in my opinion, the vast majority of what you should be doing. You're moving your body weight or you're moving an exterior load. The vast majority of movements and workouts don't have machines in them. Ramson, do you like that? Do you like that feel? Like when you first walked into, you were at a gym in Hoboken that was kind of CrossFit-esque, and then you walked into Bison. Do you like that, like that different feel that you have when you walk into a gym and you don't see the machines, the people are the machines, quote?
Yeah, I think first we have to realize that I think that those comments from the beginning of the video were aimed at when you walk into a typical, Planet Fitness and there's a specific machine for every muscle that you want to exercise. And whereas CrossFit has always been about functional movement, and when you're moving through your body through space, you're not just isolating one machine. You're not just doing bicep curls with your groceries, right? You have to lean down, you have to pick them up, you have to have, pull your shoulders back, have a tight back as you're bringing that load into your house. And so from a baseline perspective, it makes sense that that's where exercise should go, unless you're just bodybuilding and looking for certain aesthetics and looking to target that one muscle. Then if you're looking for the health benefits of exercise, you need to be doing these full range of motion, non-machine movements. So I think it's a little bit of a kind of slight and to the machines that we use, because when you're on a rower, you're not just isolating one muscle. You're not just using your legs, you're using your legs, back, and arms. We're all putting that all together when you're on the machine. Now, as we get into more specific machines, are those more targeted for certain areas of the body? Maybe, and that's, I'm sure, a discussion we'll get into later.
Yeah. And one thing that I think this video is actually afraid of, and he wants to get ahead of it, and this might be a internal thought that a lot of people have, is what's next? Because it was literally just rowers for years. I mean, I feel like every CrossFit gym that I went to in the early days had like 6 rowers. One of them didn't work. One of them was white. 2 of them were black. One of them was like a gray type of shade. And then they had a broken Airdyne bike in the back. Now it's skiergs. There's assault bikes, Rogue Echo bikes, C2 bikes. C2 just came out with a different machine that I'm not even that sure what it does. A gym owner just offered me those, I think it's called a Versa Climber, like where your hands and feet are going up and down, and your hands are also going. And I've been on them at his gym before. They're nasty. But, I said like, hey, look, we don't really have space and desire for more machines at this point. But at some point, you do need to put an end to it. I think. Sam, do you agree with that? Because I think you and I are we'll see, on the same wavelength with some of the machine stuff. But I think what we have right now at our disposal, ski, bike, 2 different kinds of bikes, and a rower, I don't believe there's another machine that we would really need in terms of workout-wise. What do you think?
Maybe Air Runner. I know we've gotten a lot of requests because and that's something we've talked about it as affiliate owners, is like, because they're big and they're expensive and like from a space perspective, but for the high roxers and for the people, I mean, we live in New Jersey, so it's like, we have a running season, and then I know as a programmer, it's always much harder to, program a run in January when there's like 4 inches of snow on the ground. So, so I think that might be the only other one that I feel like would be a consideration.
Do you consider, I mean, I know, yes, objectively the Air Runner is a machine. I don't consider it in the same section as the other machines as well, because it's you're still supporting your body weight, and it's more of kind of like a safety thing. Like I love to run, but if I run outside, I get beat up. If I go on that machine, it's a little bit easier on the knees and hips, and I can run on it a little bit harder without any sort of fear of being banged up the next few days. But yeah, Adam, do you think that should that be grouped together with machines in terms of what the topic we're talking about? Because in the video this past year, 50% of the events at the CrossFit Games had a machine in it. That's a lot. And I'll get into that later, but that includes the Air Runner. And the Air Runner in sport, it could be used for a lot of different reasons. It could be a safety thing. It could be, hey, we need to keep inside. It's hard to come up with a fair running route. I don't know if I would group that together with machines. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this is where we can kind of deviate from the affiliate level and the sport level. Because if you're programming for, say, semifinals, and it's going to be at 4 different locations or wherever you're having those bigger competitions, if you're going to have something with an 800-meter run and the venue just doesn't work for that, I think, there High Rocks ran into this problem where, the High Rocks that we did, obviously you were running outside and everything was fine. another High Rocks where they couldn't have inside. It was like a zigzag track that they had to go. So a lot more turning and everything like that. So that affects your times for the running, because now you're speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down.
Yep.
So on the sport side, I think it can add intensity to a workout where you don't need a specific venue. At the affiliate level, I think it's much safer than, like you said, running outside. So I would group the air runner into the machine category, because I think the machines are meant to take impact off the joints and just make things a little bit, be able to up intensity without upping the risk of injury.
So let's kind of parlay that into the first. There's really two perspectives that we need to look at this from: the coach perspective and the athlete perspective. And the coach could be grouped in with the programming side. Sam, this is where I think probably some of your stronger thoughts will come from. You have coached a lot of classes at Bison. You've coached a gym that has increased in average age for a long time now. And you see, especially with big classes in the morning, you've had mornings where you coach 3 classes and you've coached 80 people. And in those 80 people, you have some people like they cannot run, but they're there to work out. And we've never and will never demean someone that can't or doesn't want to run because they don't want to be banged up. So they hop on a bike. And we have some people that is their automatic go-to 12 months a year. And I don't think any way about it at all, to the point where I feel like we might need a few more machines because that number seems to be increasing. Was that one of your emotional reactions to this video and topic overall, that to come across as condescending at all to someone that needs a machine to get that workout in and feel better the next day? To quote Bob, our friend Bob, the sign of a good workout is one where you can come back the next day from, right? Is that where some of your thoughts came from?
Yeah, there were 2 parts of it. That was the first part where I don't think he's considering the needs of all the athletes that come into the gym. I am often somebody who will do an assault bike instead of a run. And I think for most athletes, honestly, if they're pretty decent runners, they would choose running any day of the week over an assault bike, especially 100%. The equivalents that we use. So I don't think it's easier at all. And at least he admitted that you can get a disgusting, I think is what he said, disgusting amount of intensity from a machine. And so when people are trying to save their knees, their ankles, their joints, absolutely, I don't think he's really considered the everyday athlete when he talks about that part of it. The other thing is he thinks you can just sub other movements. There was one part of it where he said, well, instead of using a row, why don't you just do 10 snatches at 95 pounds? And I'm like, dude, you've never programmed, have you? Like, what is that all about? Like, they're not equivalent. He thinks they're equivalent in this video, and he just kind of rolls over that. And I'm like, no, you lack the depth in terms of figuring out how machines are used or not. And he says they're equivalent, and they're not equivalent. You can't sub a row. Like, trust me, you do a row versus, say, an assault bike, and you go right into high box jumps, they are not going to feel the same, dude. And so those are the kind of things where I feel like you said, pretty emotional about the fact that he lacks the knowledge about using machines properly for the everyday athlete.
If you're like me, you hear someone talk like that and say, hey, you should snatch instead of row, right? I do this a lot at the gym, and it's weird, but I think it's worked over the years in a few different ways, where with a certain topic, and there's thousands of them at the gym that just come from programming alone, that I think about specific people. You know, I'm envisioning a certain people at the gym that you're saying, don't row, go snatch, or don't bike, go do more wall balls. Don't do this, go do thrusters. I'm like, that wouldn't work for those 19 people. They wouldn't have a good, safe workout. We go far beyond burning calories and having the best possible prototype workout when it comes to programming. It goes way deeper than just the workout. It goes into some headspace. It goes into logistics. It goes into, protecting people from themselves. To be honest, there's so many different angles you go in when you program that I think a machine, to me, is he brought up using it as a crutch. And to me, I think it's one of the safest ways to promote one of the founding principles to CrossFit, and that's intensity. I've heard and seen Adam do this in person, that he really does think that one of the worst ways to end a workout is on a machine, right? Like you do all this work and then you got to go do a 500-meter row, and it's or a 50 cal row. And why is that, Adam? Why is it the worst way to end a workout?
Well, because you can always go really hard,
Yes.
But let me be devil's advocate for the people that are runners, which, most people are not. But I think running is a completely different cardiovascular experience than being on any machine. Any machine can't replicate running. You just can't do it. And as much as there are people that need that, they have to sub out the running. I think there's also a small pool of people, I'm not going to name any names, but some people that are saying, I don't feel like coming in from a 400-meter run, huffing and puffing. I'm going to hop on the C2 bike, or I'm going to pull a 1200 on the rower where I know I can get through that and be fine, hop off and get right into the next round of whatever we're doing.
True.
So it's.
Yeah, I don't think there's any disagreement that the best form, the best bang for your buck for conditioning in terms of what it does to you and for you is running, because you're supporting your own body weight. As a bigger guy, like that's probably one reason why I like machines more than I like running, is that I get to use my mass, right? I'm 209 pounds right now. Like that's a lot of weight that goes into the power output of rowing and biking. Skiing, not so much, but it still definitely helps to have more mass. And I always like to tell people that, and I say this all the time at Outlast and Bison, that if you're really struggling on the machines or you're really good on the machines, don't overreact one way or another. Like how much you weigh is a big part of being productive and powerful on machines. And because you're sitting down, it doesn't matter if you weigh that much, right? But if you have to support your own body weight and then go move, yes, it's a little bit more taxing. So I agree with both of you that machines are fine to sub out running, especially if there are joint-based issues, but also don't use the machine as a crutch if you just simply don't like to run. Because if we cherry pick at that level, you are going to sell yourself short of your long-term fitness. But from a programming and coach perspective, getting people to work hard is difficult for a few different reasons, right? You don't want to come across as like the fire-breathing drill sergeant to someone that just had their second kid. They slept 4 hours. They have to go to work after this. Like you don't want to get in their face and tell them they're not working hard enough. But you also don't want to be the cheerleader softy that's going to, like, I don't like those coaches either that are almost too nice to be a little hard on you sometimes. So one thing I like to do with machines is it just makes you go harder. And I feel it's safe for everyone. That's one of the biggest things I like. Like, I don't really care if you're going to go super hard on wall balls or snatches. Do I think that has a little bit more benefit than rowing and bike? Sure. But Thursday's workout, for example, Adam, you just did, has rowing, bike, and burpees. That's it. That's the workout. Vast majority of the workout is on a machine. I feel really safe if anybody comes to the gym that day and goes really hard. And I mean that. Anybody. Think of anyone in our gym. I'm like, that's going to be a safe bet for you to go really hard today. Let's see what you got. But if the workout was overhead squat, pull up, and box jump overs, I would not feel 100% safe and confident that I can go to anyone in the gym and say, go as hard as you can today. Let's just hope for the best. Did you sign a waiver, by the way? So that's where I stand from a programming perspective. And that's why I like to use the machines. If I had, I would say 1 out of 5 to 6 workouts has a machine in it at Bison. So meaning we use it once a week, sometimes once during the week, once on the weekend. And I like it, but I don't feel like I'm overly reliant on it. In the winter, as Sam said, the lack of ability to run outside for a few months up here is a factor. But Sam, when you coach people, do you kind of feel that same, because you've coached a lot of the older crowd in the morning, the people that love to come every day because it's part of their mental like routine. They feel better when they're there. And you've seen people banged up from heavy deadlifts and wall walks and handstand push-ups. You rarely, it can happen. Yes, I know, but you rarely see someone get off a bike, but, ooh, I just hurt my knee. or rowing and I just hurt my elbow.
Yeah, I think the safety factor of a high intensity workout makes such a difference. We see that on the Outlast side. So we have a lot of athletes on the non-CrossFit side here where you incorporate a lot of machines, and they feel, even if they're fairly deconditioned or they haven't worked out a lot, or they have joint or other mobility issues, they can up their intensity safely on those machines in a way that you can in a pull-up workout. I mean, when people push intensity on a pull-up, chest to bar, bar muscle up workout, what happens? Like 10 tears that day, like at least, I would say. And so as a coach, especially I've always tried to do the workout a little bit. That always helps me a little bit. Like which workouts you can tell people that like this is one where you have to watch the snatches at the end of the workout, or you have to watch this but anytime, like you said, you finish on a machine, like as a coach, you're in their face, you're literally in their face, like go, like hurry up and go. And and that you can get them to finish strong on that.
Now, last thing on the coaching perspective, Adam, when you coach classes and you see workouts that we do all the time, I just did one this morning. It didn't have a machine in it, but the idea was get yourself a little tired and then go do stuff. And that to us is a big part of fitness, right? I like to use that line all the time. It's like, cool. I appreciate and respect that you're strong or you're good at gymnastics, but if you can't do it when you're tired, you're not that fit, in my opinion. And I've seen that a lot over the years, that information or that opinion does not just come from myself. It comes from watching so many people work out over 10,000 classes at this point, that if you can't maintain quality movement or some sort of consistency in your patterns because you got tired, that's a hole in your fitness that we can work on together to try to get you to a higher level of fitness. That's why I like having machines and workout as well. It doesn't make you do 130 wall balls before we find out if your wall ball form is good when you're tired. It could be, hey, go row 800 meters and then go give me 20 wall balls. Preserves the joints a little bit safer, but it's a great way to test people, train people in that concept alone, that can you do this stuff when you're a little bit tired? And that's one of the things that sets CrossFitters apart.
Yeah. And I mean, and you want it to be an even test, so when we're talking about logistics, not just the winter months and the summer months, running at 5 a.m. in the dark and running at 7:15 p.m. is completely different from running at a midday class.
Yep.
I know Elena years ago turned her ankle on a run because she just stepped in a pothole, couldn't see it, and so you have to think about the safety that way. So if you want a balanced test for people across the board, machine's a very easy way to get that.
That's a great point. The darkness issue, that, I mean, we deal with that no matter what time of year it is, and we talk about it all the time. Like, how safe do we feel and where we are? And, I've been to some CrossFit gyms where it's just, you're running in the streets, you're crossing roads, and people with their distracted driving issues these days. Like it really does make a coach feel a little uncomfortable sometimes when you're sending 20, 30 people outside, where, hey, inside you get that cardio fix and everyone's right in here. So note to self, I think Adam's telling us that we need to get 30 air runners at the gym, Sam.
No, but and another point is, like, as coaches, when we send people out on an 800 meter run, you can't coach their running form.
That's a good point.
They're out the door, they're gone, and until they get back and you can say, oh, now you're doing the wall balls, let me look at your movement here. You don't know whether they're running well, using the pose method or anything like that. There's no way to effectively coach that.
That's a great point. So from the athlete perspective, I think this is just as interesting in some ways. It, like, I don't know what I got triggered by more in that video. Was it someone's criticizing a coach / programmer, or the athlete side? And I think the athlete perspective on this is just as important. So if you want to get better at CrossFit, let's keep this simple. Does the machine help as much as free weights and body weight movements? And I'm not trying to get you to answer one way or the other. Like, what is your opinion on that, Sam? That if you had to choose, if you are stranded on an island and you can have an army of machines or an army of pull-up bars, wall space, and weights, what would you choose?
Oh, pull-up bars and weights.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I mean, the thing that CrossFit has taught me the most is that I can work out anywhere and get a good workout with anything. And that is the best part of CrossFit. It's not like, oh my God, where's my rower? Where's, my elliptical? I don't need anything. I have learned how to work out in my hotel room without a single piece of equipment and still get an awesome workout. And so machines are helpful, but the way he indicts machines in this video is what really bothers me. And I will say, one of the things he mentioned, and I want to point this out, is that, there are 10 points to CrossFit, right? And he goes through all the different ones, and some of them include agility and,
balance.
Balance and the ability to, control your body and all these. And it's completely legitimate and true. And yes, do machines not help you learn agility and balance and all those things? Yes. But the way he talks about it is unimaginative. So, for example, he mentions, there was a workout where there was bar muscle up practice for the first part, and then there were row intervals for the second part. And people were like, oh, I don't want to do bar muscle up practice. I just want to do the row intervals, showing how terrible machines are. And that doesn't mean machines are terrible. That means his use or whoever programmed those machines is terrible, because your workout last week, and this is what I thought of immediately, was you had row intervals, farmer carries, and then either handstand walk practice or bear crawls. And I watched those athletes, and guess what? They brought a disgusting amount of intensity because of the rows. The farmer carries were super functional, and then people just did whatever they could on the hand. You didn't tell them what to do. Some of them were able to do handstand walks. Some kind of did some practice like handstands. Some people did bear crawls. And you know what? They were all doing handstand walk practice on some level. It just wasn't unimaginative and be like, okay, just go practice handstand walks. You made them do it with machines in a good way. And that's what this kid, or I don't know, he's not really a kid probably, but
who he is,
is missing, is that you just did agility work with machines. How about that? Sounds pretty good to me.
I would challenge him back that can you find a more creative workout that, and we've done this before, work on muscle ups, but there's A, B, C, D to it, right? There's pull up strength. There's days people have muscle ups and like, screw the pull up muscle ups. Like, just go work on some of your strength stuff, like your shoulders banged up or that you're not stringing them together right now, all that stuff. And not that it's a bad idea to work on muscle ups, but if that is literally the workout, I probably would think 80% of our gym would feel that way. I'm like, I just want to do the back part, And so you have to get more creative as a coach and programmer to blend the two together. So no one has that thought. And that workout was legit hard. Like, I was smoked after that one last week, and it was because of the machines. And but it was the other elements to it just kind of wrapped up into one workout where like you felt like you did everything at once. Ramsin, do you, we kind of have touched on this a little bit, but do we use machines because it's comfortable or because it's really helping us do what we're trying to do? That kind of blends into what we just talked about with that workout, the muscle up work, row second. What's your opinion on that? Like, you could use it yourself as an athlete or people that you've coached, your wife who's been a member for a really long time. Do we use them? And she hates machines. do we use them because it's like makes us feel comfortable? No right or wrong, by the way. Or we use them because it's really actually helping us do what we're trying to do?
I think if, your goal as an athlete or as a CrossFit athlete is to be as well balanced as possible, and so that's continually saying, and we say it all the time, to work your weaknesses. If I see two workouts with one has a row, it could be the exact same workout. One has a 20-calorie row and one has 20-calorie bike. I'm going to look forward to the 20-calorie row much more. I feel more comfortable on the rower. I suck on the bike. But there are people that are flip-flop from that.
Yeah.
You know, people see the bike and they're like, ooh, I can really lay into that thing. For some reason, it doesn't blow me up. Whereas the rower just, you know, they can't get the timing down. They can't get the leg drive and stuff like that. So I think it gives people the opportunity to show not only, you know, work on their weaknesses, but also for other people on the flip side to show their strengths. And you need that sometimes in a workout for you to have the momentum and the motivation to come back for the next day.
Now, the lessons that a machine can teach us. All right, he kind of craps on the zone 2, and zone 2's been getting crapped on a lot. And we're going to do an episode on this coming up, that I do think zone 2 has gotten confused for a lot of people. Like, what actually is it? Like, some people only view it as, I'm not going to go that hard today. And that's not what zone 2 is. But, and I think we should, as a coaches and as a programmer, like, I should probably share a little bit more information on what zone 2 actually is. But they crap on zone 2. And I agree that I didn't know what zone 2 was for my first 7 years of doing CrossFit. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. And this is where I love CrossFit as much as anyone. But some of these guys that are stuck in 2012 to 2018 CrossFit they miss it so much that they can't accept that things have evolved for the better. They want to go back to the 2012, 2013, and to the point where I actually think a lot of those things in that time period are why CrossFit has not grown from COVID, essentially, or from 2018, essentially, is that they did a lot of things wrong. And this comes from real world conversations that I've had with people at our new gym Outlast who have had it in their heads, whether they're right or wrong, it's not for me to decide, for 10 years that they can't do CrossFit. It's stupid. It's dangerous. And I know so many people that got hurt on it, or it's too intense, or it's not scalable. It's only for really fit people. To me, to say that zone 2 wasn't a big thing in the early days, and the machines feed into zone 2 too much now to the point where it's a stupid thing and people are missing out on intensity, is a very short-sighted approach to what machines can do for fitness. Because I'll tell you what, I've learned more about conditioning, pacing, and myself on machines than any 2 movements combined in CrossFit. Any skill, any lift, every strength gain, every strength loss, which has been more and more common in recent years. I've learned more via machines and the information I get from them. And I'm a nerd with some of it, I admit. But that stuff has taught me more about it. And I'm more confident coaching people on machines than I think anything in CrossFit. And I do believe in its value. Sam, how much grit can you get on a machine and just get out of there and be like, hey, and feel good about it, feel safe about it? What can you, like, if I'm telling you to hold a 73 RPM on an assault bike for as long as possible, rather than hold 18 wall balls per minute on an EMOM for as long as possible, very different how you feel the next day, very different safety patterns. And I also think there's something neurologically that goes on in your head when you have that machine in front of your face with numbers and data to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And that speaks to the zone 2, because I didn't really realize as a classic CrossFitter what that kind of workout feels until I started doing more Outlast workouts. And right. you know how it goes. You, as a CrossFitter, and I've seen this coming over to the Outlast side, they come over and they just go hot, like a lot of intensity. And then after that first, second, third round, they're like dead. And then you're like, wait a second, I have to figure out, I can't keep my heart rate in the 140 to 150 range and then let it dip down and then come back up the way classic CrossFit makes you do it. You have to keep in the steady 120, 130 range, like the whole friggin' time. And that's a total different mental challenge, because that intensity on a zone 2 isn't immediate. It builds. By the end of the workout, you feel wiped, but you never broke 120, 130 if you were smart the whole time. That is what machines can allow you to do. Like, if you're doing some other barbell movement or something else, like, it's much easier to, like you said, do a high number of reps, pull that intensity up, and then you can always just rest. You put that barbell down, you put the kettlebell down. You're just you're stopping, and you're not working. You're essentially doing no work. When you're on a machine and you have to hold an RPM for a certain amount of time, you are forced to maintain a certain amount of work the whole time. And that feeling as an athlete, and I've learned that now, is completely different. And as you said, for conditioning purposes, a game changer.
Yeah. Adam, do you think using a machine can get you better at CrossFit straight up and just the
100%.
conditioning component?
Yeah, because I mean, eventually, if we go back to your example of, holding the bike at a certain RPM or doing 18 reps of any movement for a minute, every minute, eventually your form's going to break down on that movement, whether
Yep.
it's wall balls, whether it's thrusters, whether, it's just you're going to have a crappy squat during thruster, and, you're going to have that slow press out at the end.
Yep.
And that's where your risk of injury kind of increases a little bit, right? We've all had those reps where we're like, ooh, I dodged a bullet there.
Yep.
Whereas on the machine, your form doesn't really break down. You just go a little bit slower when you can't push anymore.
Right.
So, if you're looking to get better at CrossFit, I think the machine is the way to kind of up that intensity in a safe way, where now can you go to another movement if it's part of a workout and still continue to keep, the movement quality that you've had for when you weren't doing the machine.
Yeah, I mean, I love in a machine, like, let's just create a workout, 10 rounds of 500-meter row and 30 wall balls. That's too much. Let's say let's say 5 rounds of 500-meter row and 30 wall balls, right? Karen with rowing, nasty.
Oh my God.
We would all get slower. And we know that we'd get slower. To quote Brendan from last week, like, we know, like, I'm slowing down and resting too much. I don't need something to tell me that. But I love getting on a row. I'm like, wow, I was rowing a 142 on my first pace. I'm at 154 now. And on the next one, I'm 208. Like, it's just information for you. It's not degrading. To some it is, but it's not like, hey, you suck. It's like, wow, I probably should have started off a little slower than 142. And you can't really do that with movements. Another thing I love about machines, and we're going to wrap this up soon, is you can't cheat on them. Like, you have to go get X amount of cals. I mean, I've seen it done over the years. I've seen people cheat in every way, but there's no cheating a range of motion. For example, if I'm going to use movements that he talked about, ring muscle ups, pistols, wall balls, thrusters, we see it all the time as coaches. And I don't think it's a tangible decision always, anyway, that people are going to try to cheat. But as they get tired, Adam noted, the movement quality breaks down. Safety is an issue, but also the rep is an issue, the range of motion. So how many times have we seen that over the years? Someone starts getting tired and or they get to a certain weight. We have a 5x5 back squat tomorrow. I know it's going to happen. People get to a certain weight, they stop squatting as much. So, like, what are we doing? Are you adding weight? Or are you adding weight to the front half of your squat? And that'll be part of my talk at the whiteboard tomorrow, is that we're not going for a max, hit your range of motion. And on a rower, on a bike, on a ski, on an air runner, you can't cheat that. You are on that thing until it's done. And that's something I love about the integrity. And that's why I'm a little surprised that this is coming from a Hiller type channel, where he, quote, made his money or made his name based on people not doing things correctly. Where on a machine, you're guaranteed to do them correctly unless you make a decision in the moment. I am not going to do that much work. I'm not doing as many reps as what the workout says. And most people don't do that. They usually just start shorting the range of motion. And that, to me, is a big part of the reason why I think machines should always be involved. And if anything, I'm actually going to kind of push against it and challenge programmers and coaches to find more creative ways to use them.
How about for competitors? Before I forget, I wanted to ask you, because that's a totally different, do you not like the fact that he hates all these machines in competition?
I don't think one game season is enough data to use. Hey, it's taking over. Because to me, remember the 1 year at CrossFit Games, they didn't use, or the regionals, they didn't use a barbell.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And people cried about it, but it was 1 year. And I think it was a really good change up. 1 year at Legends, the first year at Arizona State, they did no machines. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do well, but hey, that is what it is. Now, if they do this again next year, I do think 50% of the events with machines, I do believe that's too much for a sports season. Fitness, I think it could be close to that. I just still think 50% of your workouts having a machine is probably a little too much, but I honestly wouldn't kick that much against it because of what we've seen in our line of work over the years and what it can actually do for people. So I think in sport, it can be used too much. I agree. Sports, both training and the actual competition itself. So to wrap this up, let's say, if CrossFit came out with a rule that you're allowed to come up with one machine only, you can have 50 of them. You can only have one machine at the gym. What would it be, Ramsin, and why?
I would stick with the rower. I just think it's, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The rower's been around since I started CrossFit 11 years ago. I think it translates well to a lot of other movements, pulling from the ground, using that leg drive, putting yourself in good position, making sure you have a strong midline to get your most effective pull. I would say that, if you feel like you're a bad rower, it's probably just because you're not as efficient as, you could be. But I think that rowing is really safe to add intensity, and I like it better than the echo bike and the assault bike. So I'm a little biased.
I mean, honestly, I think Adam is right, but let's suppose there was some command that came down on high and they said Echo Bike is the only machine that you could use. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I feel like it would actually push people in a lot of ways. I think it is really, you can get the worst. I think the worst workouts I've ever done in my life have been max assault bike type workouts. It's been around a long time. Schwinn Airdynes were around for a long time before the concept C2. I mean, the concept rower was. So I would almost say let's try for a year, nothing but air bike or assault bikes, and see what happens.
That'd be cool. I'm in CrossFit Open that's never had any machine other than the rower. Every now and then I feel like they're going to say 1 year, like, hey, you guys have a year to get bikes for your gym. I'd hate for them to do that to a gyms right now for the Open. That'd be a little overkill, like they did with the dumbbells that 1 year. But I honestly have a hard time deciding between the rower and the Echo Bike, because I agree with both of what you guys said. I think the rower, movement pattern wise and muscle recruitment movement patterns, is probably the best bang for your buck. But for intensity purposes, I think the bike does it. I can't. The worst 5 things I've ever felt in CrossFit have come from the Echo Bike. Like when you really go ham on that thing, and I just believe in terms of what it can do, just for your ability to produce power when you're tired, be able to maintain power when you're tired, and you don't get to rely on upper body, lower body. Yes, you get a little bit of help from the arms, but really it's lower body or bust. So the last thing is, what should programmers and athletes, you can kind of group it together, what should they be careful with, or what do you want them to consider as they kind of go through this topic in their own head, coaching perspective and athlete perspective? And then we'll wrap it up. Is what should they just be careful with of kind of leaning too far in one direction? Adam, you start.
I would say don't have it be the last thing that you just add to a workout, right? Like you're programming your workouts, you're not happy with it. Oh, I'll just throw in a 25 cal row and that'll up intensity. I think it has to be a meaningful thought over part of your workout. It has to be almost like a focus for some workouts. And then otherwise it can also be like, oh, throw in a recovery row if you're looking to maintain movement for a longer period of time. But don't just add it in because you feel like you need something else to add to the workout.
All right. Sam.
Yeah. Creativity. I've seen you use machines every which way, during, in the middle. Like I said, I think be mindful of not sacrificing, balance, agility, gymnastic movements because of machines. And I think that can be done in a really good way.
And I'll just wrap it up with the machines, unless it's prescribed for active recovery or it's prescribed to be at a certain speed. If you're going to use them or program/coach them, understand what we've said in this episode, that it is aimed at increasing the intensity in your workout. It's not a joyride. It's not to chill. It's not to have a conversation with someone. It's not to make the workout easier. All right. Safer. Yes, absolutely. I'll sign for that all day. If you feel safer on it, you do it. But always understand that the machine is never there to make the workout easier. It's there to literally make the workout more difficult. And that needs to be the mindset when you get on that thing in a workout and when you're programming workouts or coaching them. It's not a coach job. And I think that is the reason why this video might have been made, beyond the fact that the guy probably is not good at machines himself, is that it's becoming a crutch. And it's kind of taking away the intensity feel, where I think if done correctly, it can add that intensity feel while keeping people as safe as possible, which, by the way, is a big part of our job as well. All right, that went a little bit longer, but that was a really interesting conversation with two really smart guys. Really appreciate your time here on a Sunday. Enjoy the rest of the day, fellas, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herdfit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.